My oral history project is a unique individual immigration perspective of a U.S. citizen. Growing up in New Orleans, I went to school with and had coworkers who were from Central and South America. Their families came to New Orleans specifically due to the trade coming through the port from Latin American countries surrounding the Gulf of Mexico. From that experience in this class, I learned that our nation's largest minority group is made up of individuals from many different countries, and that each country has its own distinct culture and history. After moving to Austin, I found myself in a city whose Latino population was predominantly of Mexican heritage. This was also reflected in the makeup of my coworkers, except for one person from Puerto Rico. That person is my coworker, whom I shall refer to as Bob. It is after getting to know Bob that I realized he had a rather unique perspective on the immigration process. His experience combines elements of the traditional immigrant experience and a colonized minority experience. That experience and his decision to move to the U.S. as an adult intrigued me to do this history project. Bob is single in his late 40s and works in IT for a local institution of higher education. He is the youngest of 9 children. His father worked various restaurant jobs, while his mother stayed at home to raise the children. The family originally resided in the countryside just outside the town of Ponce in the southern part of the island. The family later moved into town when he was in junior high school. He has an undergraduate degree in computer science from the University of Puerto Rico in Ponce and worked for Motorola on the manufacturing floor as a CIM, Computer Integrated Manufacturing Technician. He was laid off after the company moved operations to Mexico, after tax incentives which originally drew the company there had expired. He used the time off to visit an older sibling who lived in Austin. After visiting, he decided to move to the U.S. on April 30th, 1997, a date which he remembers to this day. He lived with his older sister for a while before settling into a new job, an apartment. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens at birth due to it being a territory of the U.S. Although in many ways culturally distinct, the influence of being part of the United States is reflected in some degree of acculturation in Puerto Rico. Bob recalls, "I actually do not remember if we did the Pledge of Allegiance, but the 2 flags, Puerto Rico and the United States, were outside in the main entrance of the school. English is taught as a subject beginning in 1st grade. Bob remembers having to learn the states of the U.S. and their capitals. Much of the American influence is through media such as television. Television was an influence in his eventual choice of degree study. He remembers, since early age I was interested in technology, mainly because of the science fiction shows I watched on TV that involved future technologies. This was mainly American TV shows like Star Trek and other space travel shows. I think there was one named Space 1999. The other big adjustment or realization was the multicultural aspect of the mainland. Bob remembers, one thing I started to find out in the U.S., Austin, Texas mainland, was that every other person I will meet was not from Texas or came from another country. I thought I would be one in a city of many, but when I realized I was part of the many, that helped me to adapt and to feel comfortable in the city and welcome. Hispanic Americans are partly an ethnic minority group and partially a racial minority group. With this in mind and the ongoing discussions of race and immigration in our country, I asked Bob if there were differences in discrimination in Puerto Rico and here in the U.S. He attests that in Puerto Rico, people came in many different skin tones, from the very white, almost Anglo, to the very dark. He never felt discrimination in spite of his olive complexion, except for a time in school. I remember in school I would be teased because where I live, the countryside, El Campo. They used to call us Jibaro. This is someone who lives in El Campo and mainly worked the land. But I never felt discriminated in any way, at least in those days. The immigrant experience ascribed to Puerto Ricans in our class text rings true in Bob's story of moving to the U.S. in some aspects. He came to find work and found an easier transition thanks to his sister already living here, providing a chain of migration in his U.S. citizenship. He was already familiar with the U.S. through acculturation in Puerto Rico. He was fortunate enough to find work in his field even after being laid off. One adjustment he found he had to make was a prejudice based on race and skin color as opposed to class. He already spoke fluent English, so language was not a barrier as it is for other Latino immigrants. I think the most important lessons I have learned from this project is that we can try to group individuals into categories to try and understand them better. But that group is made up of individuals, and that everyone has a unique experience that makes them different. As an educator moving forward, I hope to honor and value each person's individual experience.